Yo, what is up, guys? It is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, back again today with another fantasy football video. Today, we are doing a 12-team PPR draft from the 10th pick, as requested by one of my subscribers, Andy B. This is a pretty typical draft. The only thing different is that there are two flexes instead of one. It's pretty similar draft strategy, but that's how his draft is, so that's what we're going to be drafting. And a lot of leagues do use two flexes. I've noticed typically in a lot of leagues this is becoming the new normal. In one of my leagues, I play two flexes, so I find it kind of normal. So before I start the video, I'd like to ask you guys, could please go down below and click that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you go down below and click that subscribe button, I'm going to help you guys dominate the draft, dominate the regular season, dominate the postseason, and kiss that beautiful fantasy football championship trophy. And if your league doesn't already have one of those trophies, go down below, check out my sponsor, the Fantasy Bros. If you use code Notorious at checkout on that link in the description, you will get 5% off, and it would really help me a lot, and it's also going to help you because the trophies and the draft boards, everything they sell is pretty fucking sick. I have some of their stuff, and I like it. So let's begin the draft. With the first pick, it was Saquon Barkley, followed by Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, D Hop, DJ, Devontae Adams, Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. Now, the first three picks, pretty typical: Saquon, CMC, Alvin Kamara. And the fourth pick is D-Hop, which now I'm seeing a lot more guys go with a guy like D-Hop or Adams or DJ ahead of Zeke. Zeke went at 7. Now, Zeke may fall super far back in your draft due to the fact that he's holding out, and it seems like he may miss a few games of the season, and that does kind of worry me a lot, and I wouldn't necessarily pull a trigger at 4. Now, at the 7th spot, I'm more likely to go trigger happy and pick him. But what I do know is in the 10th round, I'm 100% picking Tony Pollard, his handcuff, that late in the draft because I feel like you need it, and that guarantees that you pretty much combine both of them for the whole rest of the season. And then you just drop Tony Pollard once Zeke starts playing so that you have a guy that will finish as a top RB because you have that insurance that even if Zeke misses 3 games, you have Tony Pollard to play in his spot. So with our pick right now, there's a bunch of good wideouts still left, so I think that's what we would do. Typically, I like going with the double wide receiver strategy, but I know double running back strategy, but I noticed in these kind of drafts that Nick Chubb should be able to fall to us in the second round. Nick Chubb has moved up and may end up being a first round pick by the time you are drafting for your draft. So let that be noted. But right now, we're going to go with the best wide receiver available. Now, there's a lot of debate here. Do you want Thomas? You want Julio, Odell, Tyler, or Tyreek Hill, or Juju at the third best wide receiver available right now? Because obviously the first two have won. So in my opinion, the third best is Julio Jones. I think he's just very safe. You know what he does. He goes out there, he dominates for you. He'll get you 100 yards, get 10 targets a game, 11 targets a game, get you 100 yards, and potentially score you a touchdown. And you just want that solid production on Atlanta. Now, the one thing you do have to worry about is he does get injured every once in a while. His leg always seems to be banged up, but at the same time, he always goes out there and has solid production, solid Julio here. After with Julio, Michael Thomas came at the board, followed by Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, and now this makes our decision a lot harder. Now, I think I've kind of came around on this one pick here, and that's Dalvin Cook. If I do pick Dalvin Cook, I do have to pick his backup. His backup is Alexander Madison, who goes a lot later in the draft. You can pick him around the 11th or 12th round, but I'd be willing to draft him around the 10th round. Let me just highlight him here so that you remember to do it. Alexander Madison right here, that's his handcuff. So you click the watch list thing if you're drafting on Sleeper. Otherwise, you just click the whatever the button is on your draft, or highlight him if you're in your at-home draft to make sure that you can handcuff him. So we're going to go with Dalvin Cook here. Now, I love Kerryon Johnson, but I do see this upside a lot in Dalvin Cook being one of those running backs that could potentially finish as a top 10 guy. Now that's because the Dalvin Cook, when he was playing, seemed or played very, very, very well. His rookie year, he came off on fire till he tore his ACL. Last year, he dealt with some injury but played a lot of games. Now the thing is, are we sure that he will be able to stay healthy through this year? That's his biggest reason not to draft him is the health issues. Now, like I said, you could just draft Madison and be pretty confident with having just an RB1 for a lot of the year, and then Madison would be like an RB2, RB3 kind of guy. Or you can go with Kerryon, who also has that injury risk, but not obviously not having torn. I don't believe he tore his ACL last year. I know he got hurt, but I can't remember what his injury was off the top of my head right now because it is pretty late at night when I'm recording this for all of y'all. But I think that I would just go with Dalvin Cook here and just handcuff him later, so that since I explained about how I think Dalvin Cook has that super high upside. So after with Dalvin Cook, Tyreek Hill came off the board, followed by Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, Odell Beckham Jr., Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, Pat Mahomes, Mike Evans, Kerryon Johnson, T.Y. Hilton, Devontae Freeman, Melvin Gordon, Damian Williams, Antonio Brown, Marlon Mack, Leonard Fournette, Stefan Diggs, and Josh Jacobs. So the first tight end off the board at the 2-6 was Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce's teammate, the first quarterback off the board, came off at the 2-10. Typically, you're see Pat Mahomes go around the 3, 4, 5 range in these mocks, like 3, 4, 5th round range in the mocks. But in your at-home league, I can 100% see him going in the first or second round. That's pretty typical for your fantasy draft if you're playing with your friends, a bunch of people who aren't as smart in fantasy because they're not subscribed to this channel like you are. And you're just a fucking genius because you're with me right now. Now, I would like to go and get another running back here because there's a lot of concerns with Amari Cooper. He hurt that fucking injury that I can't pronounce, the plantar fascia issue. You know what I'm saying? The fascia issue. This seems to be a heel problem. That is no bueno. We don't know. Reports came out that this may linger through the whole season. And, I'm kind of fucking scared of that. So we just avoid that. And Julian Edelman does have that hand injury, that thumb injury, and he's been banged up a lot in the past. So that really scares me too. So I'd much rather just go with a running back here that I think is a lot safer. Now, right here, Aaron Jones has dealt with this hamstring injury, but he is back in practice. He was out on Thursday. He didn't suit up for the preseason game, but he returned to the team drills, which is pretty good. Now, the thing is, do you want to go with Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, or Chris Carson? And I think I like one of these guys more than the other. I definitely like all three of these guys, and I wouldn't be mad if you picked any of these guys in this situation. But I would much rather just go with Mr. David Montgomery because now I love Chris Carson a lot in fantasy this year because of the amount of targets, and now the amount of targets because he is likely going to see 50 targets or 50 receptions this season according to his coach, but he is going to be getting so many touches every single game. They are such a run-heavy team, the Seattle Seahawks, and I like that. But I do want to go with so much upside. I see David Montgomery potentially being a high-end RB2 when the season comes to a close because of how explosive he is. Let's see, where is he? He could see snaps tomorrow, or as you're watching this video, it's Friday, so you may see it. He impressed in his preseason debut, ran the ball 3 times for 16 yards and a touchdown, and caught all 3 of his targets for 30 yards. He's viewed as a whole package, a whole unit by the coaches. He's like Jordan Howard, but who can also catch passes and runs better than Jordan Howard. I think that as long as David Montgomery is given the opportunity to go week 1, I think that a lot of people are going to regret not drafting him this late. And come draft day, where some people draft around Labor Day weekend, I think David Montgomery may sneak up here and be a second round pick. So I love the value here in the 3rd round. So after with David Montgomery, Aaron Jones came out the board, followed by Zach Ertz, Amari Cooper, and Kittle Timbers. So all big 3 tight ends are off the board, and Pat Mahomes first quarterback off the board up there, like I said. Now, typically here we would just go with a wideout here like Woods or Godwin, who I really like, but a running back did fall to us, and his name is so juicy that it's calling my name. I did describe why I liked Chris Carson before. I like him because he's on such a run-heavy team. I like him because now the coaches are coming out and saying that he's going to be getting 2/3 of the touches, not just 50-50 or 60-40 like I believed it would previously be. Now, you can't necessarily believe all in this coach speak because when it comes down to it, when they play the Cincinnati Bengals, I believe, week 1, yep, the Cincinnati Bengals week 1, it could be a 50-50 showing. But what I do know is they run the ball so much that Chris Carson has so much big play ability. He's going to be a guy who you want on your team due to the safety of the fact that they're going to be running the ball so many times. I just love Chris Carson here in the 4th round. So after we went Chris Carson, Robert Woods came off the board, followed by Derrick Henry, Julian Edelman, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Cooks, Kenny Galladay, Chris Godwin, Mark Ingram, James White, Philip Lindsay, AJ, injury-prone ass motherfucker, Calvin Ridley, Tariq Cohen, Jarvis Landry, Tyler Boyd, O.J. Howard, and Sony Michel. So 4 tight ends already off the board and only 1 quarterback. So if Mr. Aaron Rodgers falls to the 6th round, I may have to take him there. Even though I'm not much of a quarterback early kind of guy, I am feeling quite fucking dangerous right now and kind of want to do that. Now, right here, this is a hard decision at wide receiver between DJ Moore and Mike Williams and Robbie Anderson. Now, I do love DJ Moore because I like the whole Panthers offense with Cam seeming like he's going to be very healthy. And that he's able to, reports have been coming out that he's able to sling the ball. His deep ball passing is back. So I like that for DJ Moore. I also like Curtis Samuel going just 5, 6 rounds later. 5, 6 rounds later. Curtis Samuel, let's see. His ADP is 92. So he's going a bunch of rounds later. But I do still like DJ Moore for that upside because he probably will be the wide receiver one on the team, seeing a lot of targets. Now, the thing is, you could either go with him or Mike Williams because then if you go with Mike Williams, you can just snag Curtis Samuel later. And I think I am more willing to do that. Now, I have drafted DJ Moore in a real league I pay money for, that I'm the commissioner for, my at-home league, the league of record, the one that I take very, very seriously. And I drafted DJ Moore, but I do think that right here, I would probably go Mike Williams given the chance. I don't think Mike Williams was available for me because I think Mike Williams is just going to have a great year. Now, with Melvin Gordon likely missing 8 games, potentially 8, 9 games, it's going to look like they're going to rely a lot more on the passing game. Phillip Rivers is going to be throwing the ball to Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen got hurt today, so now it's kind of scary. Well, today, I mean yesterday, technically when you're watching this, Keenan Allen got hurt, so now I think Keenan Allen will be good for week 1, but now maybe Mike Williams will get relied upon a lot more. Mike Williams scored 10 touchdowns last year, but with very little targets, so you would think that maybe he may be able to repeat 9, 10 touchdowns again and still be getting a lot more passes because they shipped the other Williams, Tyrell, straight to the Raiders. So we're going to go with Mike Williams here. So after we went Mike Williams, DJ Moore came at the board, followed by Mr. Feeling Dangerous, Baker Mayfield, Tevin Coleman, and Aaron Rodgers. So right now, there's a lot of good tight ends available. So you're either going with right here, you could either solidify and bolster your running back and wide receiver game, or go with a tight end or quarterback here. Obviously, you're not going kicker or defense. So if you're one of these early round quarterback guys, around the 6th round right here is about the earliest I'd pull the trigger on a guy that I see with a lot of upside in Deshaun Watson. I don't like Andrew Luck. He has the doubtful signification because he's dealing with the calf strain and pain in his lower left leg, leaving his availability versus the Chargers week 1 in doubt. Reports saying he could be in, hopeful, could be out, ankle injury. All of this tells me that you just don't want to draft him until you know what he's going to be. If you know he's starting week 1, if you know he's going to be fucked for a few weeks, that you can't be drafting in the 6th round. So I think that Deshaun Watson right here in the 6th round is great because while he's 2 years off the ACL, didn't get banged up last year, so that is pretty good to me. Now, once you're 2 years off the ACL, usually you're pretty good off of injury or to not like tear it again or get another type of injury like that, like Dalvin Cook. Now, last year he got hurt again, but it didn't have anything to do with his ACL. So I think Deshaun Watson right here would be my pick. He has a lot of running upside, which is what I like to look for in a quarterback in fantasy football because when you rush 10 yards, you get 1 point. But when you throw the ball 25 yards, you get 1 point. So rushing gives you a higher upside because you have to do less of the rushing. And the Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson loves running the ball. He's a great rusher, a great passer. He has great weapons on offense. As long as once Kiki Kuti gets helpful, or not helpful, obviously, once he gets healthy, it's gonna be Kuti, Hopkins, Fuller, and then they have Duke Johnson if he can become healthy in the pass catching spot. They've got some tight ends. They've got a bunch of names at tight end. Ryan Griffin, I believe, still on the team. A bunch of guys, and I just like Deshaun Watson because I think he can make that move. And while I think that Aaron Rodgers will be the quarterback too in fantasy, Deshaun Watson could also fly up there and be the second best quarterback in fantasy football. So I don't mind taking him there. So after we went to Deshaun Watson, Alshon Jeffrey came at the board, followed by Andrew Luck, Lamar Miller, Kenyon Drake, Evan Ingram, Miles Sanders, Jared Cook, Hunter Henry, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitz, Robbie Anderson, Allen Robinson, Austin Eckler, Dante Pettis, Latavius Murray, Darius Geis, Will Fuller, Kareem Hunt. So when you're drafting a guy like Kareem Hunt, you need to understand that you're just wasting 9 weeks on your roster, and you shouldn't be pulling the trigger in the 7th round, 8 or 9 weeks. So you shouldn't be pulling the trigger in the 7th round on a guy you know for a fact that you can't start for a bunch of weeks. In my opinion, that's just a waste of a pick because you don't even know what he's going to be 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks in the season, once he returns. If a Chubb pops off and goes hard in the motherfucking paint like I think he will, then it's not even going to be worth having Kareem Hunt because he won't even be used all that much, in my opinion. So now we're going to load up on some higher upside running backs here. Now, I like Penny, but I don't really want to go with Chris Carson and Penny because while Chris Carson is semi-injury prone, I don't really think that he's going to get hurt, and I don't think that you can really start Rashad Penny and him at the exact same time. I don't think you really start two running backs on any team at the exact same time. Maybe the Seahawks would be the team you could do it. So we'll look at the other options around here before we determine on drafting a handcuff in the seventh round. Darrell Henderson's behind him. Darrell Henderson has a lot of question marks around him. He relies heavily on if Todd Gurley's healthy. Right now, Todd Gurley seems semi healthy. Now, I don't trust Todd Gurley to do that knee arthritis type deal where you don't necessarily know what he's going to be doing week in, week out. How, like, he could be in, they say, okay, he's in, and then he plays one drive and then he sits out for 3 drives and then comes back in. It's so fucking confusing because of how fucked up that knee is. They don't want to injure the guy, get the guy super injured that they paid so much money for when they can likely just ride Darrell Henderson for a bit and then maybe just play Todd Gurley like in the playoffs when they need him or in these big games when they need him. I think that's what could end up happening if this arthritis knee is really that fucked up. So I think honestly, I would just probably go with Penny here. If I'm being honest, just handcuff Chris Carson here. Make sure that we have that RB1 slot locked up for the Seattle Seahawks, whether it's Carson, whether it's Penny, and potentially some weeks if we're feeling a bit fucking risky, we're feeling a bit dangerous, we're feeling a bit crazy in the brain, insano in the braino, you know what I'm saying? And we would just go with Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. Now, I think I'd have to be off some shit, like some crazy shit, if I was to do that. But you never know. So after we picked Rashad Penny, Darrell Henderson came off the board, followed by Jordan Howard, Fat Sammy Watkins, and the old man LaShawn McCoy. So now it's our pick. We have okay. Actually, right now this is some crazy shit because we have both Chris Carson and Rashad Penny in our flex. I'd probably replace one of them with a different player, but that's fine because now we can load up on either one more running back and then go with the wide receiver brigade or go wide receiver. I think we're just going to load up on one more running back here and get Rolls-Royce Freeman. Now, let's see if there's anything we want to read here. He broke loose for a 50-yard run in the preseason game, but that doesn't really impact too much on my philosophy on Royce Freeman. And that is, holy shit, if anyone heard that, a fucking fork just fell from across my room. There's a fucking ghost coming in here to touch my ass while I'm doing a fantasy mock draft for you guys. So, Rolls-Royce Freeman is going to be a 50-50 split between it's going to be him and Philip Lindsay, and then Theo Riddick's going to maybe get 10% of touches or some crazy shit. Not 10% of the touches, but he'll be on the field. So it's not really truly 50-50, but you get what I mean. And I think that Royce Freeman will truly emerge this year. He played okay when used on Denver last year. They were very bad last year. Will Joe Flacco, the elite one, be able to turn it around for Denver? No, I really don't think so. But I think they will be slightly better than last year. And what I do know is that Royce Freeman didn't really get much of an opportunity last year because Philip Lindsay played so great. And then Philip Lindsay got hurt at the end of the year, and now Royce Freeman seems to be getting a lot more work in practice. And I think that if he emerges in these next couple of preseason games, he's going to be well worth this 8th round pick and be a guy that you may even be able to start in your flex every single week. After going with Rolls-Royce Freeman, Matty Ice came off the board, followed by D.D. Westbrook, Drew Brees, Carson Wentz, Cam Newton. So a 3-quarterback run right there, followed by Vance McDonald, Geronimo Allison, Kyler Murray, MVS, Eric Ebron, Chicago Bears defense, Sterling Shepard, Russell Wilson, L.A. Rams, David Njoku, Marvin Jones, Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis. So let me talk real quick about this idiot right here. This guy picked the Bears defense super early. Don't do that. Don't pick the Rams defense early. You wait till the last 2 rounds to pick a defense. Now let me talk about Kyler Murray also. Kyler Murray, I really used to like him in fantasy, but it just doesn't. His first preseason game was great. His second preseason game, that was last night, not so good. This offensive line just is terrible on the Cardinals. It's just fucking bad. And I don't know if I'm willing to draft Kyler Murray. Now, I think DJ will still be fine because he'll just be catching passes and all that, and it won't really matter how bad the line is. But Kyler Murray is kind of really starting to scare me. And I don't know if I like him as much anymore. And I'm sure glad I don't own him in any fucking leagues just yet. I do think that maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe I am really overreacting because it was just one game, and he seemed to play fine the first game. Who knows? We'll see what happens in the third preseason game. But if you're drafting before then, I would kind of just stray away from him. Now, I do still like him. Like, if you get him in around the 11th, 12th round and you draft 2 quarterbacks, then I'm perfectly fine having him because you're not necessarily starting him every week. But right now, I am kind of in the worry train right now. So, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. So, it's time to lock up some wide receiver depth. So, we're going to reach down a bit here and go for Mr. Deshaun Jackson. Now, Deshaun Jackson is going to be not the number one target on the Eagles, obviously, because they have Alshon Jeffrey, and who knows how good Wentz really is. But what I do know is Deshaun Jackson is a great wide receiver. Now, he's getting up there in age. He's been playing for 11 years, but he's been looking good in training camp, and I believe that he will be great on the team. He had flashes on the Bucks of being a great wide receiver in the past 2 years, and I think that returning home to Philly, back where he belongs in Philadelphia. I'm not even an Eagles fan. I'm just fucking talking, but I think that Deshaun Jackson will probably have a great year this year in the slot. Have a lot of the Eagles last year, Nelson Aguilar was usable pretty much every game. So I'm sure Deshaun Jackson will be usable every game in the flex or my second flex spot, or even as the wide receiver 2 on my team. Not necessarily going to be super hyped about that, but he is a guy that I do like here. So after I went to Deshaun Jackson, Ronald Jones got the board, followed by Jalen Samuels, Jared Goff, Cortland Sutton, and now it is our picks. So we're going to load up on one more wide receiver here, going bike to bike wide receivers. And this is a pick that I don't necessarily love, but I think just has to be done here, and that's Kiki Kuti. Now, I loved Kiki Kuti in fantasy football just a few weeks ago before he got hurt, but now he's looking questionable for game one. I thought his leg was completely shot, but it doesn't seem to be that way. It seems like he will play, if not week one, a few weeks into the season. And as my wide receiver 4, a guy that I know is going to be riding the bench for a bit, and I can just start him a few weeks into the season, I'm perfectly fine having Kiki Kuti ride the bench, and as a guy who I know that if Will Fuller goes down, he'll end up probably being a flex option every single week, and if Will Fuller stays in the game, he'll still have great weeks, and he's going to evolve a lot as a wide receiver coming from building upon last season. So after Kiki Kuti came off the board by us, Emmanuel Sanders came off the board, followed by Kalen Balaj, Austin Hoopa, DK Metcalf, N'Keal Harry, Carlos Hyde, Famous Jameis, Damian Harris, Phillip Rivers, Duke Johnson, Devin Singletary, James Washington, Dante Moncrief, Tom Brady, LA Chargers, Alexander Madison, Jags defense, Big Ben Roethlisberger. We still don't have a tight end, but fuck the tight ends because we're going to just wait for Mark Andrews probably one more round and then pull the trigger here. Now, in this type of league where you have two flexes, I'm more likely here to just load up on one more wide receiver that I think has high upside, but I know you can't really play. No. I'm not going to do that because I think that this is a decision that could be very fatal to us. So we're just going to go running back here and go with the guy who I think will be picked around here, and that is Justin Jackson. Potential RB1 or 2 on the team, but he'll be like a fantasy RB2, RB3 for the first 8 weeks of the season while Melvin Gordon is gone. I'm completely sure that Melvin Gordon is going to hold out about 8 games, and I don't think he's coming back for the first couple of games, that's for sure, and I know I can start Justin Jackson in my flex spot for then. Justin Jackson had great games last year while Melvin Gordon was out. He was eaten. I had him on my fantasy team. That's not much of a bias, though, because I didn't have him on every team, and I still won championships with him, without him. He was a great running back in the playoffs when Melvin Gordon was out. So we do know that he can do it. He's not just a guy that you're taking in the 11th round just on the hope that Melvin Gordon is just ends up holding out, and you don't know what he's going to do. We know he can do it. He can play ball, and I like him in the 11th round here. So after with Justin Jackson, Peyton Barber came off the board, followed by Anthony Miller, Golden Tate, Delaney Walker. Currently, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs and 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. So I likely here we'll get one more wide receiver. And this pick is something that I haven't really talked about, but I do actually kind of liked here in the back of the draft, and that is Mr. Tyrell Williams. Now, what we do know is AB will likely be able to play week 1. His cryogenic fucked up feet, that motherfucker, that diva fuck, Antonio Brown, his feet are fucked up. But what we do know is that he will likely play week 1. And I do think that Tyrell Williams played great on the San Diego Chargers. And while Oakland has a worse quarterback in Derek Carr compared to Phillip Rivers, I do think that he will have his time to shine unless AB murders him to get more targets or something crazy like that. I think Tyrell Williams will be pretty useful in fantasy. Last year, there was not too many wide receivers you wanted out of Oakland. It was really just the Jared Cook show, and then there were a bunch of other names that you didn't really want to start. But I know Tyrell Williams, I'd probably be willing to start in certain games when they're playing against a shitty defense. And I think that Tyrell Williams is a solid pick back here. When there's a lot of guys here that with a lot of question marks, Josh Gordon being drafted around him, you don't even know if he's gonna be fucking playing this year. Guy like Jamison Crowder, he's like the wide receiver 3 or 4 on the Jets. Paris Campbell, who really knows if Andrew Luck is gonna be healthy. So after went Tyrell Williams, APK on the board, followed by Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, T.J. Hawkinson, Devin Funches, Minnesota Vikings, Matt Breida, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jerick McKinnon, Josh Gordon, Greg the Leg Zerline, Cleveland Browns defense, Dickie Dak Prescott, Justice Hill, Jamison Crowder, John Brown, Jordan Reed, Ito Smith, and now it is our pick to go with our tight end, and that is Mark Andrews. Now Mark Andrews was pretty silent today. He just got 2 passes or 2. He caught both of his targets, but he's pretty silent today. We thought that he was really going to have an emergent. Personally, I thought he was going to have a great preseason game. Now, Lamar Jackson only played a bit, so we don't really know how used that he will be. Now, in training camp, it seemed like Mark Andrews was one of Lamar Jackson's favorite targets, and I do still like him here, but I am tempering my expectations slightly for a guy who I thought would be a super huge breakout candidate to being a guy that could still easily break out that you're getting late in the drafts, but a guy who, in my opinion, is not as safe anymore, not necessarily knowing what's going to happen. So after we went with Mark Andrews, Paris Campbell came off the board, followed by Greg Olsen, Justin Tucker, Kirk Cousins, and now we get to get one more running back here, likely, and that's what we'll do. And we will go with the high upside of Mr. Tony Pollard because Ezekiel Elliott is suspended or not suspended. Ezekiel Elliott will likely hold out a few games, and I know I could play Tony Pollard in my flex for those first couple of games if Ezekiel Elliott does end up holding out, or I could just trade him to the Zeke owner and get something for that. So after we drafted Tony Pollard, Kyle Rudolph came off the board, followed by Debo Samuels, Naheem Hines, Dion Lewis, Jimmy Graham, Jack Doyle, Dante Foreman, Trey Burton, Michael Gallup, Houston Texans, Adam Humphdaddy, uh, Harrison Bucker, Will Lutz, Gostowski, Fairbairn, Elliott, Robbie Gould, Eagles D, and now it is our pick. So we are going to load up, get our favorite defense here. So the way you're going to go and draft your defense, you're going to go on Google, right? You open up Google, you open up another tab, you type in NFL schedule week 1, and then you go to the defense, and then you look at defenses playing a shitty offense week 1, and you draft that defense. It's that fucking easy, boys. So we're going to take the Cowboys against the Giants. And guess who they play week 2? The Washington Redskins. So you got 2 solid weeks out of the Cowboys. So after we went with the Cowboys, Matt Prater came off the board, followed by New Orleans Saints, me, Cole, Hardman, Pittsburgh Steelers, and now we are going to get our kicker here, and we're going to go with Badgley. After we went Badgley, Giorgio Trevecchio came off the board, followed by Darwin Thompson, Marquise Hollywood Brown, C.J. Anderson, Gio Bernard, Traquan Smith, Noah Fant, Devontae Parker, and Mason Crosby. So our finishing starting lineup is Deshaun Watson at the quarterback. Our 2 running backs are Dalvin Cook and David Montgomery. Our 2 wideouts are Julio and Mike Williams. Our tight end is Mark Andrews. Our flex is the Seattle Seahawks running backs Chris Carson and Rashad Penny because we got 2 flexes. Obviously, we'd probably exchange him for a guy like Kiki Kuti or Justin Jackson or even Tony Pollard. Our kicker is Badgley. Our defense is the Cowboys. Our bench is comprised of Rolls-Royce Freeman, Deshaun Jackson, Kiki Kuti, Justin Jackson, Tyrell Williams, and Tony Pollard. So thank you guys all for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please go down below and click that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me because it helps me a lot with growing my channel, and it also helps you because you're going to be able to dominate during the season, dominate the regular season, or dominate the draft, dominate the regular season, dominate the postseason, get that fantasy football trophy. And like I said, if you don't already have your fantasy football trophy, go down below, check down the description, fantasybros.com. Coupon code Notorious at checkout, and you get 5% off. It helps me out. It's going to help you out, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Even though this is the morning video, and you're going to come back, I know, to watch the other 2 videos. Have a great goddamn day. I love all you motherfuckers. Goodbye.